This might be the worst day Israel has experienced since the war began. For the first time, Netanyahu himself admitted it, saying they were living through an extremely critical night in the struggle for our future. That kind of language from Netanyahu alone tells you something. Iran didn't just challenge the Iron Dome this time, it walked through it. The target was Dimona, Israel's nuclear heart. Then came the missiles raining down on Arad, a city practically in Dimona's backyard. Official figures report over 88 wounded, and the death toll is still being counted. That wasn't the end of it. The Bazan oil refinery in Haifa was struck next. It sounds like one facility, but it isn't just one facility. It's the source of more than half of Israel's diesel, gasoline, and jet fuel supply. All at once, aerial footage made the scale of destruction impossible to dismiss. And it wasn't only Arad and Dimona. Eilat, Beersheba, and Kiryat Gat were all targeted simultaneously with missiles and kamikaze drones. Iran's military made a point of announcing this wasn't improvised. They spent 3 weeks mapping Israel's vulnerabilities before moving. The Israeli public is furious. People who spent this entire war placing absolute faith in the Iron Dome, people who genuinely never mentally prepared for something like this, are now turning that anger directly on Netanyahu. Meanwhile, Trump, who had just finished calling NATO allies idiots and managed to alienate nearly every partner he has, stepped to the podium with a new threat. If Iran doesn't open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, we will destroy their power plant, starting with the largest. Don't read this as theater. Targeting a country's electrical infrastructure isn't a military strike. It's a strike against society itself. You can stop a tank. You can shoot down a plane. But when the lights go out, hospitals run on generators, intensive care units go dark, operating rooms face blackout, communications collapse, water systems shut down because city pumping networks run on electricity, cold chains break, logistics freeze, banking systems lock up. Turning off the power is the fastest way to make a city uninhabitable, and it sits in deeply contested territory under the Geneva Convention. The fact that Trump has arrived at this threat tells you everything about how unsustainable Hormuz being closed has become for Washington. Iran, for its part, appears to be reading these threats the way most people read the weekly weather forecast. But Trump still has one rope to hold on to: Japan. Japanese Prime Minister Takeichi's visit to the White House took a strange turn. In the photos the White House released, Takeichi looked like the most relaxed person on the planet, but the meeting itself was anything but. Trump, responding to a reporter's reasonable question about why allies weren't informed before the Iran strikes, said, "We wanted it to be a surprise. And who knows surprise is better than Japan. Did anyone tell me about Pearl Harbor?" Takeichi's face hardened, froze, but not a single word came out. Then she walked out and told the world, "Only Donald Trump can bring peace. Japan will work alongside him." She said this about a man who, days earlier, had ordered a strike on a school killing 168 students, set gas facilities ablaze, and was threatening to bomb power plants within minutes of that very statement. And, of course, about a man who has spent years bankrolling the ongoing genocide in Gaza. The Japanese public, usually deeply apolitical, has had enough. Demonstrations broke out in front of the Prime Minister's office, so why did Takeichi go that far? The answer is blunt. 90% of Japan's energy supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. When the strait closes, Japan is essentially flying blind. And Trump, abandoned by nearly every other ally, needs Japan at precisely this moment. The exchange was concrete. A $73 billion investment package landed on the table. $40 billion for nuclear energy, $33 billion for natural gas projects. In the middle of all this chaos, one winner has quietly emerged: Russia. The strikes on Qatari and Saudi oil facilities, combined with Hormuz closing, carved a deep hole in global energy market. Washington had to partially lift sanctions and payment restrictions on Russian oil just to keep supply from collapsing entirely. That cracked open the door for Moscow to return to world market. Russia had already pivoted east after the Ukraine war sanction. This was simply a windfall on top of that pivot. India, one of the region's biggest energy consumers, found Middle Eastern supplies suddenly unreliable and had little choice but to deepen its dependence on Russia. Russian crude exports to India surged by 50% in just a matter of weeks. By the end of March, Moscow had pocketed over $5 billion in additional revenue from this crisis alone. They didn't fire a single shot in this war and came out as its biggest economic winner. One more thing worth saying: reading these wars like medieval maps, tracking front lines, measuring territorial gains in kilometers, is increasingly disconnected from reality. Drones, kamikazes, and ballistic missiles can hit a refinery, a nuclear facility, or a city center from hundreds of kilometers away. What matters now isn't how much ground you hold. It's how credible your deterrence is. And deterrence is measured in the weight you carry in foreign policy. That weight matters. Takeichi flew to the other side of the world, stood next to Trump while he made Pearl Harbor jokes at her expense, and couldn't say a word. That is a precise measurement of how narrow Japan's room to maneuver has become. People rarely want to discuss this, of course, because we'll win this war no matter what. We'll always get more applause than this could cost 300,000 lives. When we discuss these scenarios, we're fully aware they are scenarios, analyzing the possibility of Israel striking Turkey or NATO fracturing under pressure. pressure is not the same as wanting those outcomes. That's what politics is: mapping possibilities, running theories, and never putting a body count inside a trophy case. This is where things stand. Israel is going through a genuinely brutal stretch. Trump grows more contradictory with each passing day. One afternoon announcing the war is over, Iran is finished. The next morning, issuing 48-hour ultimatums over Hormuz. That inconsistency isn't just noise, it's the behavior of someone who can't find the exit. Take care of yourself. See you tomorrow.